Yo, 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 how's everybody doing today? Hello, Segmesh. Hello, Bapan. Banker, Seven Oaks. Crypto Streets. Nomad Basile. Phillips. Crypto Omelet. Hey, Carl. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. Happy Thursday, right? Welcome to the show. My name is BigChonis. Remember, you guys can follow me on Twitter. I'm at BigChonis. These are all my best ideas. I take technical analysis very seriously. I am a crypto trader, a mentor, a chart psychologist, an investor, a photographer, a chef. Everybody, please do your own research. Real quick update here. I just want to announce I am taking on new students for September for my mentoring class. It's a great way to get some help in terms of your trading prowess, a better understanding of expectations in the market, and I work one-on-one with you to figure out how best to approach the market from your particular and unique situation. So if you have any interest in that, I'd love to talk to you. Please DM me or email me, bigchonis@gmail.com. Also, I am part of the Until 1 Mil trading group, and lots of great stuff we talk about on our Discord group. You can find that until1mil.com/TA packages, and make sure you use referral code BigChonis. So we're going to talk some Bitcoin, and I kind of wanted to bring up the BitMEX chart here, because what we're looking at here is something. This is a parallel channel here. I did put a center line in here, and we have our top clearly defined, right? We wicked out here, literally to the penny. And then we have our bottom line here, which is our support, right, at 58.80. And we've only touched that once, but we've actually touched our top line here twice. So I wanted to just make note of one interesting thing here. Every time we break through our middle channel resistance, right, we're actually breaking through with either several candles. This is just a 15-minute chart here, but I want to kind of prove a point. Or we get wicked out here. We get a little push here, but basically wicked out. We're actually able to hold above slightly. Little wick out here. Big wick out here. Remember that one? And right now, our most latest, we're finding resistance here. So we're not even getting enough bull pressure to kind of break it, wick out, and then come back like we had seen previously. So that's interesting. We're also watching some of our volume here. Remember, this has a lot of the volume in the actual Bitcoin market right now. So that's interesting. And we basically see what kind of big volume can come in. And then we're just watching here to see here, because these big moves, they happen so quickly. This is on a 15-minute chart here. So you just have all this sideways action, then all of a sudden, boom, something big happens here. So I kind of wanted to bring that up because I'm seeing this bearishness here in terms of the fact that every time we do touch this middle trend resistance line, we are actually somewhat able to break it for a little bit. And ever since we fell through again, it's actually acted as pretty strong resistance. So keep an eye on that to see if it continues to act as resistance. Let's go to our Bitcoin chart here. So we're going to start with our 4-hour here. Now I wanted to start with this guy here, because this was actually a tweet I did a couple days ago referencing what a lot of people on Twitter have started to talk about, which is this really large head and shoulders that Bitcoin could actually be creating here on the chart. And with the yesterday's pump, or was it 2 days ago? I can't remember now. All the days are getting flustered in my head here. We've actually created a much more defined right shoulder. Now, we had a previous one much lower, but you actually see where we topped off here on our left shoulder was about 6,800. And look at that. Sure enough, we wicked out here. So that wick, that brutal wick, if you went long, because it fell back to almost a losing position so quickly, that really did create a right shoulder and almost reinforces the potential for this to play out. Now, we can definitely talk about where we could be going here, but before we do that, let's really focus on what has to happen next for this pattern to actually play out. Now, we have kind of two subjective areas here of our neckline. One could say it's 5,800. We've touched it here a couple times on the left shoulder. But for our actual neck here, we only touched it here on our right shoulder. So there is an argument to be made that actually our neckline could be as high as $6,100 to $6,200, meaning a break of that could actually mean this is already beginning to play out, and the neckline it actually has been confirmed to break. But we're not there yet. We're still kind of watch what happens there. So let's do a couple of things here. But as has been brought to my attention, there's some news here on Bitcoin. So I'm just going to go to a quicker chart here, a lower time frame. I'm going to go to the 5-minute here. Okay. So we had something going on here. We had this is a 5-minute. This is a decent sized volume here with a long wick. So even though it's done pretty hard, it was actually bought up and we had a little pop here. Now, why do we have this pop? Let's go to CoinDesk, and there's some interesting news here because what happened with our ETF situation that brought some FUD to the market, CoinDesk is now saying the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission says it will review Wednesday's rejection order for 9 of the Bitcoin ETFs. Pending the outcome of the review, the 3 August 22nd orders or 3 of the August 22nd orders have been stayed. And what basically that means, there were 9 full-on rejections. Apparently, there are the 3 August orders have been stayed. So as I'm reading this right, looks like 6 remained in rejection, and 3 of them are basically not so fast. We want to take a second look at these 3, and that's kind of interesting. Wonder what's going on with that. So that's something to keep an eye on. And again, interesting time. Maybe we're almost falling off here, and then that news comes out and kind of saves us here. Again, the market's really not showing a lot of volume behind that move there yet, so something will definitely keep an eye on, but it just feels like we're just barely holding out here, and every time we have these little wicks, these nice bullish candles that seem to be, okay, maybe we're actually moving to some significance, we just give it all back with a vengeance, and that's clearly shown in this situation here, where on a very short time frame, this move actually seemed, very epic. But let's look at our 6-hour just for instance here, and we actually see that in the scheme of things here, we're just consistently finding the same resistance areas that we've been used to, and things like the MA200 consistently add as resistance here. Once we broke bullish, okay, it was great support, and then it was broke bearish. It's now resistance and continues to be so ever since. We also had this bear cross here that basically is played out. This was probably where a lot of this red candle nastiness came through, but that's basically played out there. All of our other MAs and EMAs are kind of clustered with the price right now, having to do with a lot of this sideways price action here. Now, what pattern is this? Because the problem that we're seeing here is because of this move here, and especially these candles on a higher time frame closing outside of this very tight range, it kind of screws up some of the patterns where we're kind of trying to figure out what we have playing out here. Because if you wanted to use this as a descending line of resistance, basically it stopped out at 7,100. Now we're getting stopped out about 6,900. And our basically bottom is here, and then maybe we're finding some support here. I'm going to ignore this wick because I like how these bodies all seem to be touching into play. Then we're actually finding something like this. I'd call this it's a upward angled rising symmetric triangle. I don't really call this a wedge because both angles here do come in at a pretty isosceles, is that a word? Thing here, which basically means, I see this as bearish because of the way it's angled. It's angled up here, which is kind of a bearish. If it was angled a little down, I actually consider that bullish, but this is what's going on here. And this kind of sets up 2 scenarios. If we can keep holding this support line here, there's a good chance we're going to touch our upper resistance line again, well, at least one more time potentially, because that will be a test of the MA200 once again on the 6-hour. We might be floating in with our 100 right here, which we also wicked out to as well, which used to act as support. So it's definitely respecting the 100 and the 200 as major resistance on the 6-hour. Remember I talk about using the you use the time frame. It tells the story, and so you got to search around to figure out what time frame and what indicators on that time frame are really telling you the story of what's acting as the resistance. So on our 12-hour here, our yellow line is our EMA 55. It's one of the EMAs I use in my TA, and you can clearly see after we wicked out here, it's been very strong resistance and continues to be. So that definitely is notable. This is a major area of resistance that if we ever want to get back up here, we got to blast through this guy first, and we definitely see if we can break it, we don't hold it, and after we don't hold it, we definitely use it as strong resistance. So we're tight here. This line of support here does allow a little bit more of a trickle up, but it also shows that if we break it, it's going to act as resistance. Now we had something similar on a much lower time frame, with yeah, it was this one here. Again, we adapt to um, what's going on, and basically, yeah, we broke bullish, we broke bearish. Yeah, it was something like that, and this was much tighter here. Yeah, it was like this. That's right. I remember now. So we were watching this kind of tight wedge here, tight triangle. It broke bearish, but then it came back up. And once it broke the apex here, it actually allowed for this bullish move. So now we're doing a much larger one. And this much larger one is probably kind of potentially induce something similar to what this smaller one did, which means we have the potential for this actually to break. We want to see if the market can buy this up, similar to this candle here where our support broke, the market bought it up and actually had a nice bullish move. If we break again, is that a trap in the market to basically say, well, if we broke our last triangle support the last time, that was a good loading opportunity and you were definitely rewarded, so let's try that again. But you start loading up in this area here, you can't continue to do the same thing too many times, because once the market gets note of it, gets wind of the pattern, that's when they kind of throw a screwball at you. So I'm looking at this here as support and resistance, and this could continue for several more days here. I mean, we're in the 12-hour chart, so we get 2 candles per day, and we see that this apex here could take us all the way to the end of the month. Literally takes us to the end of, wow, that's interesting. Literally takes us to the last day of August is where our apex comes to its apex. Hence the apex. But we also see that a lot of times we don't even make it there. We fall out or we break bullish kind of somewhere in this area. So just because it takes us to the end of the month doesn't necessarily mean it will take us that long to get there. Let's look at other indicators, shall we? So let's go back to our 4-hour. And let's look at our RSI here. Oops. Okay, so oh, interesting. We're getting tighter here. Okay, so when we have our stochastics RSI move here, I like to see a couple things. We always will bottom at 0. We'll always top out at 100. But I like to see a full retrace and a full extension. And what we're getting recently is neither. We're getting 95. Looks like we hit 100 basically August 13th. Ever since then, we're putting in a slightly sloped. Okay, so we're putting in lower highs here, and we were actually watching to see if we were going to put in lower lows. This actually turned here, but this just might be a little pause out for the actual bigger turn of bearishness. Now look at that. Okay, so we're finding a vector of support here. That is interesting. That is notable. I can come all the way up here and touch that perfectly. Okay, so we're finding this lower range of support here and here, and we're finding our upper range of resistance line here, and it's shrinking, which basically means every time we break bullish, it actually puts in a lesser bullish move, and we actually sell off on that pretty quick. That's kind of what we're seeing there. Let's look at our RSI on our 4-hour. Now I've been watching this channel It's parallel channel for quite some time here, and I have to constantly adjust it because as goes the price here. And you see we're pretty much holding it here, a little wick, little wick, little wick, little wick, but more or less we're holding it. And even our center line is showing where we have 5 supports and we have found resistances. Little bounce here, but this is weak. This is weak in the sense that we found support, but the last time we actually had a decent V bottom bounce here. This is just kind of trickling along here. Now we are over 50. I always say I like to be over 50 on as many RSI time frames as possible. It's very important for the health and for the potential of the chart. So that's notable. But I'd be very fearful if we actually break this channel because this has been very supportive all of August. So if we actually break this RSI channel and go lower, that basically would signal, almost a sign of times to come of more bearishness in the price of Bitcoin, because then we're putting in a whole situation here where we're retesting our lows of the RSI, which has taken us all month really to get this high up. Stochastic still positive. We did have a bear cross here. We're trying to once again set up some sort of a bull cross. Our histogram is still negative, but we're over our zero. We're over our zero line on a 4 hour, so that's notable. So we're finding support there. Let's go to daily. Okay, now we are having our bull cross here on our daily daily MACD. That's notable. We're still in the negative here. Also, we did have a bullish turnaround here in June that did bounce around for a lot of bearishness through June. So our first bull cross, which could be here, doesn't necessarily mean we're out of the woods. Actually, it takes a couple and a very tight pattern here. See that very tight pattern there at the end of June? That was a showing that there was a bigger move about to happen. Now we're tight here, but we're not this tight. And I would not be surprised if, as we are still ranging bullish here on our MACD, we can definitely cross bearish once again. We've seen it happen before. So the daily, this is encouraging, but we're still in the negative, and that will be a bearishness continuation on the chart. Looking here at our histogram. Now, I did notice something yesterday, and let's take a peek at it. So we're clearly, I'd actually do that. What we're doing here is basically I'm showing you kind of where our biggest peak was. Remember, this was our parabolic move, and what this basically represents to me is that we're getting tighter. Okay, we're getting tighter in our bull moves and our bear moves. Now we're on the daily chart here, so these are relatively going to be not too huge until you have a parabolic move in Bitcoin. That's why this is so big, and that's why our pullback was so massive here and here. But what this is showing us is that as we go into the end of the year, this is about volatility. This is about we're really bullish and we're really bearish, and what we want to find is a better, tighter equilibrium, kind of like this, because that will add a lot of stability into the market and allow us to build a newer base. So this tells me we are unwinding from a parabolic move still, but we have some ways to go. And as we can see, that this apex could actually take us into November. You're eating Turkey Day, and then all of a sudden you realize that we've hit our apex of our histogram, and potentially we could kind of move out of this tight area for something larger. That's definitely a possibility. So let's move on. A quick shout out to what's going on here in the chat room. Who's here? Hello, Wendy. Hello, Crypto Street. Cornholio. Shell, you want to see my face? Maybe one day. Maybe one day. They say I have a voice for radio and a face for television, so I take those both as a compliment. What else we got here? Lisa, Tokyo Girl. Hello. I think this may be your first time in my chat. Congratulations. Welcome. Happy to have you. Hello, James. Hello, Teresa. Hello, Just Me. Who else we got here? Hello, Brett. Yeah, a commissioner. We'll see what's going on. Hey, what's up, Neil? Thanks for joining me today. All right, so we've done some Bitcoin here. Basically say that we're still very range bound, okay? And listen, the whales have control. Unfortunately, retail right now doesn't have any control. It just doesn't. All this volume, all this money, it's just coming from the big boys, tether liquidations, and the exchanges and the miners. And because of that, um, this is not really the healthiest of markets. There's big manipulation, and especially if you have stops in, especially if you're margin or if you're leveraged or if you're short. We can see with these wicks here is that you can just get stopped out super quickly, even though the price kind of stays relatively stable in the longer run. That's why this is a very treacherous time now to be trading if you really don't know what you're doing, or at least how to protect yourself, because these are situations here, because of it's the whales playing with all the money right now, that it can get really tenuous. And normally there'd be enough price action to do a cool analysis on there we go on my EMAs and whatnot, but because our price action is so tight, look how tight our EMAs here. This is signaling we're going to have this fanning out situation very soon, where everything just starts to fan out, because the price action is moving in a very distinct direction. Now, it can go either way. We can definitely break bearish, and all of our fan outs will happen on our EMAs and MAs, similar to what we had here. There are some bigger bear crosses on the horizon that we have to watch for, and a lot of these have to do with our higher time from MAs beginning to cross, because they have basically been so far apart, and now all this price action is bringing them together. What do we have going here? This is our 30 with our 100. Oh, interesting. So our 30 is crossing bearishly down into our 100 right when we actually had that nasty wick there. That's very interesting too. So this is look at, but one thing that is interesting, let me hide this stuff here. See how we have these wicks and tight body, wicks and tight body. Now we have long bodies, bigger bodies, and little wicks, and then we kind of have this crazy guy here. So this candle, and we have 2.5 hours left. This is our daily of 2.5 hours left till this closes. I'm watching for two things here. Can we bullishly engulf the entire previous day's body candle? That would be encouraging. Okay, I think, did we do that with this one? Looks like we just did that with this one here as well, which was very encouraging. And that would be a bullish sign there, especially with the size of our wicks here. We're watching our wicks here. If we can close literally like this is actually a very nice bullish candle right here. Mostly body, very low, small wick on the bottom, very small wick on the top, and currently we're bullishly engulfing our previous day here, and we're doing it on I'd say it's low volume for sure, but there's no sell volume, so that's encouraging. Okay, so there's so much that says this is going to fall out of the sky, just because it doesn't seem like anything's holding it up right now. We have all of our EMAs and MAs currently above it, except for, what are we holding on? It's got to be the 7, right? Yeah, that's the 7. And we're right on the EMA 12 there. So we're just finding support on the EMA 12. I don't see much into that, just because how much of resistance it's been. Let me pull up my Bollinger and see what we can see with that. Now, ooh, here we go. Now we're getting tight now. Remember how wide our BBs were here after our really nasty move at the beginning of August. So now, after all this sideways price pressure, this is really interesting too, because we're getting a lot tighter in the Bollingers, and that always tends to signal a major move is coming. We're also finding resistance at our price currently right at our middle Bollinger line there. So we're tightening. We're not super duper tight. This is more tighter. I think this is, yeah, we're not even there yet. This is an example of what can be tight. And of course, way back here, this is a normal market when we were actually, much more Come on. There we go. Like that here. So you just see with our BBs showing how big, how crazy, how amazing our parabolic move is. But this is encouraging here because we're actually getting very tight here. And this is going to signal our next biggest move. Now, what do I always talk about our Bollinger Bands? They normally hold the price action on the way up and on the way down. The higher the time frame you go, the more important that is. But bigger moves can break the Bollingers, and those are signs to either get out or to get in. A couple examples can be something like this where we actually break. Now, this is an issue here where we were so bearish that for one day we broke out. Next day we came back in. We broke out, try to come back in, broke out, and then after that we were in for good. But we actually had a little bit of a bull run here until we broke bearish again, and that you see we actually found support on our lower BB that had held until we went bullish here. And then similarly we were busting through, riding it, and then finally once we failed and found resistance on our upper BB, it's been resistance ever since. We had one candle out here. Now we're getting super tight. So this can tell me a couple things here. This will allow, because we're getting tight here, this will allow for larger body candles to form. And that tells us that a bigger move is getting closer. We see our 200 MA on our daily here and here continues to be major resistance. Now, it was sloping down, and it still is, but its decline has definitely slowed, and it's right here at a sub 8,000. This is our super duper major resistance line after you get through all these, but we're snaked so tight here. I'm expecting there going to be some crazy fan out of all of our EMAs and MAs, and I just don't know if it's going to go up or going to go down. It just feels like the market's trying to hold this area for so long because people probably feel that it could actually go lower, and it's just whale money manipulation. Now, we say manipulation. I don't mean it to be like it's illegal or anything. It's actually part of the market. This is because this is a basically very unregulated and kind of Wild West market. These whale moves are manipulation, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst thing for the market, because they also produce major big volume spikes that kind of either, depending upon which side of the trade you're on, can be very good for you or very bad. So it's just the nature of the market is what this Bitcoin market is, and only with really getting more appeal across more people, you will have the stability that we're looking for. And I think a lot of that has to do with why the ETFs continue to be decline, is because there's too few people hold too much Bitcoin. And you see a situation like the stock market, the Dow and the NASDAQ, where it's more spread out amongst institutional investors and everyday folks. And because of that, the manipulation, the price is much harder. It takes much more capital to do that. In Bitcoin, especially with leveraging, it doesn't. But even the whales can get, their get just liquidated and just wrecked. We saw the guy on the, OKX that had the 400 million liquidation. Okay, some rich guy, cocky guy, and just lost $400 million. So that's quite an event here. I'm going to go back to my BitMEX here. Take a look here at our parallel here. Let's see what we're doing here. Remember, I talked about earlier in the show how our middle resistance line continues to be resistance, and we're watching that still to be the case. I would find it notable if we could break above our center line here. And that would want us to put another test here of, now look at this, BitMEX is showing that its top off is actually above 7K, 7144. It's interesting. I think that's the highest. I think that's the highest now of all the exchanges I've seen. But we know what happened here. This was that crazy fraudulent maintenance thing here where a lot of people just got screwed and just learned the hard way about having open orders during a pre-scheduled maintenance. So that's what's going on with Bitcoin here. I almost feel like I've done so many shows in this price range here, and I almost feel like I'm talking about the same price levels over and over again, when in reality so much has kind of happened in this area, and still we're just in the same $6,400. And because of that, I bet you our VPVR shows just crazy money flow right in this area here. Come on, I'm hitting it. There we go. So yeah, I mean, look at that. Let's go back. Let's go to May. Yeah, look at that. Even as far back as April. Remember, April was our big month there. Okay. Um, 65 to 63. Well, $150 range has kind of by far the most money flow in this tight area here, all because of these candles and some of these candles and maybe this little guy right here. Of course, if we zoom way out, we actually see there's more money much higher in the 8,000 range here. But really, this is it. This is where all the money is right now. And this is a very decent base now, if you think about it. The longer you're at a certain area of price area, people come in, people come out, and the problem with these wicks is that if you're in a stop or if you're in a long, you just get wicked out. So you can't even hold, positions unless you're just gonna hold and just see how it goes. Either holding a short without a stop with a small play, or going long and just winging it and not putting in a stop and just having a bullish mentality. But that's very risky right now because we see our lower supports are still at 6K and our upper resistances are still at 6,800, and everything in between is just $100 here, $100 there. So we talk about risk versus reward and what are the times to actually take a play. And personally for me as a trader, I'm very patient. I wait for my plays and I wait for the trades to come to me. Every time I have chased, every time I have followed, not every time but most of the time, I've just come too late. A lot of the easy money is already made. Remember, if you're buying into a lot of strength, okay, a lot of this easy money is already made, so you're buying into the potential that there's not much more room left. People start taking profits and the volatility increases, then you just get very scared because you don't know what to do, and then you end up taking just a loss on a trade that you probably shouldn't have been in the first place. So being patient here, let the price action come for you. Don't over leverage. You can see here when we broke bullish, this probably trapped a lot of people potentially in some longs. If you didn't take profit, because if you haven't been taking profit in these moves here, especially big long wick moves, remember this wasn't a wick, this was a big bullish candle here, but we haven't had many of those. In our last one we had actually, which was nice with a little wick here, was our last really nice green bull candle, and ever since we topped off there at 8,500, we've had nothing close to this. We've had a lot of red ones, We really haven't had, I guess this one here was as close to a Maribosa as we can get, but I mean this would have been a great one here, but you see how it turned. I mean, it's a nasty candle, obviously. It's a shooting star. It's very bearish, very long upper wick, mostly sell volume. But because we held in this area once again, it just kind of becomes one of those meaningless things where it's just more money flow and more price action with the same price. But this won't last forever. I want to check out, I know I bring up our 4-hour a lot, and we're watching our Bollingers there. About tightness, when we talk about tightness, we've kind of widened out once again here. Let's go to our hourly. Our hourly shows quick momentum. We see how big we were here, lots of space to move. Let's look at our 6-hour. Still pretty tight. Okay, so we'll kind of hide our BBs. We'll hide our VPVR. Let's do a TD sequential count. So we're on the 6-hour. 6-hour, we have a green 2 brewing. Nothing big to brew there. Still mid-cycle. 12 hours, currently a red 2, mid-cycle. Daily, red 4. Kind of a weird count, though. We're on our 4th red, same price action. Remember that, it's because we go back 4 candles. Let's go to the 4-hour. 3 there, yeah, so we're not seeing much on the TDs. Let's go to a 2-day. We're green 2. Let's go to a 3-day. Green 2, yeah, because all these tight price action, we're just not going to have accurate counts. And our weekly is still a red 3, 1, 2, 3, and will probably be a red 3 because of how low, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, how low this was there. And probably a red 5. Really, it's week 6 here. We still have 3 more weeks to tell if we're kind of actually do a 9 count because of how low we were from this area here. We can even go higher and still, we can go up to 7,200 and still put in like a red 4. So not much really telling us on the TDs just because of a lot of our sideways price action there. So that definitely is interesting. What else? Oh, yes. Let's finish the show with some... Let's see, is anything moving right here? ZRX having a good day. But it's just gotten slaughtered, huh? Just slaughtered. What's the RSI at on our weekly? Yeah, still catastrophic. Yeah, let's look at. No, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to look at. Yeah. It's the alt pattern here. I mean, it's just all the alts. It's all Bitcoin. If Bitcoin can run, find some stability, and run again. Look at Litecoin. Look at the weekly on Litecoin here. Just super tight, super tight, super tight. This is doing something here. That's a bearish cross. Oh, we have our 12 bearishly crossing on our EMA 55. And we see where our major support here is. Oh, wow, our weekly 200 is at 38 and rising. Interesting. What's our daily look like? Remember, we've been looking for Litecoin for some sort of a pre-guidance, something that tells us what's going on and what we might be able to expect from Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm just seeing resistance, where our BBs are probably very tight. Yeah, just tightening there. Volume is increasing here. What is our OBV? See, these are times where I'm looking at our OBV for any kind of divergence, and we're not, well, high or low. Yeah, from here. Yeah, we're a little higher. I'm looking for the bearish divergence, and I'm just not, a bullish divergence here. I'm just not seeing it, and yeah, daily stochastic. See, this is what's scary. We're just already up here on our stochastics. Our RSI is just holding. Remember, we're still under our 50 mark there. We're down here on our stochastics for quite a while, so that could allow us to be up here for quite a while too. But again, it's Bitcoin. If Bitcoin breaks bullish, we know what's going to happen. Now that news there, that SEC whatever, I don't know even what you want to call it, because I don't know, is that encouraging to me that some guys put a hold on something? I don't know, maybe. 46.69. You just can't rely on a couple bucks here and there in pumps to kind of really change the play. Oh yeah, I want to go to longs and shorts here. Bitcoin shorts. Good. Okay. So a lot of people keep talking about these. Okay. We are climbing back to all-time high. Remember, we filled our gap. That's check one. We are definitely flagging up here and setting up an all-time high again. Absolutely. Remember, we've been in this channel, this rising ascending bullish wedge, very tight. If this were a coin, this would be a heck of a bullish chart. And we're finding support where we want to find it. We're finding resistance where we expect it. And this could push one more real big pop, and that would take it potentially. I got to keep into something crazy like up here, way up here. And our support remains here as well. As long as these two supports and resistance hold, we can go higher. And I'm pretty confident we're going to put in a new all-time high. Now, why do these rise? The shorts don't rise just because, an attractive person walked by. A short really has a situation here. And so, what the heck? So this something to keep an eye on here, because it's going to consistently be that major area there where you want to find that you can move higher. Now, when the shorts rise, they are rising for a couple reasons there. Either there's some bearishness on the price action of Bitcoin, and what that's basically doing is it is showing that the shorts are basically continuing their bearish channel and rising higher. Now, we saw with this big move here, that really was we were wanting to see that short squeeze. We were looking to see some kind of a short squeeze situation going on there, and we were just watching to see how much of that sell-off actually could happen. And what basically happened was we didn't really get much of a sell-off there, and we were looking for it and we just never got it. And that's something that basically makes me seem like we're actually still in play here, that this is still in play with what's going on here. And because of that, I just don't think we've actually changed anything. We've actually changed any kind of situation of looking for some bullishness in there. Now, if we were able to break bullish, that would be interesting, because then we got to keep an eye on to see is this shorts pattern going to break, and is something like that going to happen? Because if that is the case, then that puts us in a completely different situation that we've basically been in all the way through August. And that's something that's kind of important that we're going to continue to keep an eye on, because the shorts are going to add something like extra fuel kind of to the fire here. If we actually have our really big bull break, if shorts actually have to liquidate, they're going to have to cover their positions, and for that to happen, you actually have to add a lot more liquidity, into the into Bitcoin. And for that to happen, you're actually going to get a nice big pump in the price. Now, we saw what happened here when the short liquidation happened, and it happened pretty quick. That was a really nasty day. But for the bulls, that was a great day to happen, in April there. So that's something that you're going to want to keep an eye on, that they can add extra fuel to the fire. Now, if Bitcoin rises, you might also see those shorts rising as well. And that basically shows you that they're still convinced and still pretty confident that Bitcoin is going to go lower and going to put some sort of a bearish situation continuing to be put in place. So again, something to keep an eye on there as well. Okay, so we'll just go back and take another quick look here at Bitcoin. Been talking for a while here, so we'll see what's going on with that. And what we see here, let me go back to a much tighter time frame and just kind of see if we got any good information going on here. So, all right. So again, this was our little kind of our SEC news there, our kind of big, situation there. And that's something that we're going to keep an eye on here if we can get some follow through. From this news here, because that's we've had so much bearish news, right? We've had so much of this bearish news continue to come in to the market that has just kind of kept us from moving higher. So maybe this could be some of those kind of that next potential move that could really make us move higher here, and that's kind of the thing that we want to keep an eye on there. So these are my thoughts. This is what's going on with Bitcoin here. Again, I talked about this yesterday, that if you're not sure what to do, if you're not sure which way to go, just be patient. Because I mentioned earlier that the whales really have a lot of influence and a lot of play in the market right now. Even for myself, I consider myself a seasoned trader. These are areas where I'm just taking kind of small moves here and there, because we know what fake outs are, and we know what these suck up moves are. And until we can break through these major MAs and EMAs, and instead of finding them as support for just a very small amount of time, then you're just not going to be able to find that certain trend change and kind of bullish continuation. And as we continue to zoom out on Bitcoin, this pattern still remains in play, that we had our parabolic move, and we're just consistently just unwinding from it over and over and over again. And at some point, if we're not able to kind of break through our major resistance lines, especially our MA 100s and 200s, then we're just going to continue to find resistance from them, and eventually we're not going to be able to hold this 6K area, and that can put a whole different paradigm into play. But some bullish news, some bullish ETF news, other things that we're very excited for as the months go on, that will basically be something to look forward to. So Thanks, guys, so much for joining me. If you guys enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up. I enjoyed talking to you and always enjoy sharing my thoughts with you. Remember, you guys can follow me on Twitter. I am at Twitter. I am at BigChonis. And you can also find me at Until 1 Million as well. And if you have any interest in signing up for my mentoring package, please feel free to send me a DM or email me bigchonis@gmail.com. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the support. And I hope to talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.